Hello again, and welcome back. Today we're going to the first mega saga of One Piece, Arabasta. But before we get into that, I want to talk about Arlong Park, which is briefly covered in an episode log in this book. Love is a Hurricane debuts in this arc, and the saying suits Sanji to a T. I often liken Sanji's adoration of beautiful women to a cat lover's reaction to cats. No matter how much a cat yowls or hisses or scratches the heck out of you, you love that furball to death. And if that cat decides to rub against your leg with a hint of a purr, it's over. Sanji has this case of cute aggression where he directs that aggression inward, and it manifests as a desire for domination, because I'm pretty sure he fantasizes about getting stepped on by Violet. Sanji is a man of simple needs. With that said, I think Sanji's action in regard to Nami at Kokoyashi Village established an important precedent for the future. As I always say, Sanji is a believer. Therefore, he gives Nami the benefit of the doubt right away once the question of her hand in Usopp's death is raised. He chooses to believe in the best of others, not just women. Sanji has a share of delusions when it comes to his fantasies of a fairy tale romance, but he's being fair here because he later asks Zoro if Nami really might have killed Usopp. In that moment, Sanji wrestles with the grim possibility of her guilt. While he wants to think well of Nami, he doesn't blindly side with her. How well he can enforce the consequences is a different story, but Sanji is perfectly capable of holding women accountable for their wrongs, provided the wrongs are done to somebody else and not him. Another thing I'd like to point out from this arc is how Sanji's actions betray his words when it comes to men. He taunts Zoro for going after Nami, but he turns around in concern when Zoro collapses due to the strain of his wound from Mihawk. Sanji is a lover, so he's also a warrior. He's constantly getting distracted in battle out of worry. This is why Kurobi lands the hit that sends him flying, and this very same thing happens again on Kakao Island. Sanji stops paying attention when Peckhams is mobbed by the Charlotte family, and he gets knocked down for it. By the way, I absolutely love this moment, because Sanji goes from carrying Luffy against his side to cradling him in order to cushion him against the crash with his body. Chef's kiss, Sanji loves men. Onward to Little Garden. Sanji is every bit a straw hat. He goes into a stranger's wax cottage in the middle of the woods and helps himself to tea. Who does that? Goldilocks, that's who. So Sanji really likes tea. But this is where his managerial expertise as a sous chef starts to come into play, because Sanji is a quick thinker with an eye for the big picture. He helped Zeph manage the Baratie for 9 years, and he's pretty creative in his own right. And problem solving is within his skill set, so he takes to the deception of leading Crocodile astray with relative ease. I think it's really wild though how he literally snaps Miss Friday's neck and that doesn't turn out to be fatal. Miss Friday is the strongest of them all, changed my mind. It doesn't get covered in the book, but there's a minor moment later on where Sanji offers his suit jacket to Nami. Little gestures like these are very meaningful. As much as Sanji loves to see skin, he tries to be a gentleman foremost, so he always gives up his own layers for Nami between here and Punk Hazard. I mentioned Punk Hazard a lot in these, huh? Like Arlong Park, Drum Island gets the episode log treatment, but let's take a moment to revisit it. We see more of Sanji's consideration in this arc when he repeatedly reminds Luffy not to jostle Nami before tanking the avalanche. Sanji ascribes as much value to his life as the benefit he can give someone by sacrificing it. We also get a glimpse into how sheltered Sanji is where women are concerned, because he genuinely believes the snow hydrates their skin. He's ridiculous. But it's nice in the sense that it gives Sanji's character youthful energy to offset his more adult habits. Part of his charm lies in the whiplash of his extremes, like how he goes from kicking a lapin to weathering the cold for birds. His eyes are always taking in everyone around him, so it makes sense that he would be the one to notice the nest. Sanji's interactions with Kureha are also highly significant because we get a look at how Sanji treats women without romantic feelings. He's pretty gruff with her, but still protects her from Wapol's men at the castle. In other words, the chivalry he inherited from Zeph moves him to shield Kureha as he would any woman, but his swooning in general is all him. Zeph didn't teach him to overly dote on women. In fact, Zeph scolds him for it in flashbacks because his performance as a sous chef would drop in the presence of a beautiful woman. Sanji dotes on ladies because he wants to. That's his love on full throttle. It's not something he was taught to do, but simply what he is. Now we reach Rain Base, where Sanji re-enters the scene as Mr. Prince. I take this to mean Prince Charming and not his royal background because Sanji has distanced himself from Germa and he's more interested in playing the knight in shining armor for Vivi and Nami. I think those are his reading glasses, as the next time he uses them is when he's calculating the kitchen budget on an abacus, and I love the look. As for his daring rescue within Rain Dinners, this is where we see a stark difference in how he treats men versus women. If Smoker were a woman, he would have rescued her without a thought, like how he helped Vivi, then Miss Wednesday, at Weaver's Mountain. He's more calculating and wary of the consequences outside of his partiality. And there's a significant moment after the crew's escape from Rain Dinners where Sanji blasts through the tension atop pincers by calling out Zoro. Everyone here is stressed, even Sanji. But Zoro is letting his anxiety show, which is agitating the others, so Sanji goes after him by accusing him of being scared that Luffy will lose. There's a roundabout suggestion here that Sanji has the utmost faith in Luffy, because the entire point of the Baratie arc was grit. How he goes about arguing his point isn't the most civil, But Sanji does get the sentiment across before Nami shuts them down, as she usually does. Speaking of Nami, Vivi is a little skeptical of the disguises Sanji buys on their behalf back at Nanohana, but Nami loves what he's brought. There's a lot of youthful compatibility between Nami and Sanji, where their tastes match and even their personalities complement one another. Nami is sympathetic by nature, whereas Sanji is empathetic. She doesn't always understand where a person's coming from, but she'll still go out of her way to help those in need and beseech the crew for their assistance. Sanji, on the other hand, is generally understanding, but tries to dispense aid alone, and will hold himself back if doing so will burden the crew. He doesn't speak up when he needs something, but that's okay, because Nami gives it to him before he's even in the position to ask. She's the one who gives Sanji the blessing to smoke in her body on Punk Hazard. She knows, even without his asking or making mention of it, that he needs this. And Sanji loves this part of Nami the most. The compassion that forgives her enemies and helps the needy, because whenever she does these things, he redeclares his love for her. Sanji says later to Bentham that people are their hearts, and he loves Nami both for her outer and inner beauty. Honestly, I really enjoy the humor in Sanji's duel with Mr. Tubankle. A slapping the hard eye? Genius. I'll go into more detail about his reluctance to strike the female form once I get to Water 7, so let's look instead at Sanji's ability. Sanji's gifts in combat line speed, and later durability. He's not only quick on his feet, but also on the uptake. I recall there was a comment in the One Piece magazine about how Sanji's lethal when he kicks, because preparing his own ingredients means he's intimately familiar with the placement of organs in the body. Oda-sensei puts a lot of care into Sanji's combos, and it makes his fights fun to read. I also enjoy how the last exchange of kicks between them is almost reminiscent of a dance battle. Sanji's delinquency strikes twice in this arc, by finishing off his already defeated opponent, but another detail of importance is how he retrieves Usopp's goggles in the process. Not only that, Sanji abandoned his post earlier to ride to Usopp's aid. He was supposed to fight Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas with Chopper. And this is what I love about Sanji's relationship with Usopp. Usopp is everyone's friend, but Sanji has moments like these where he reveals how closely he pays attention to Usopp. Although he beats Usopp's face on Bentham's body, and he still cares about it and goes to certain lengths for him. The Arabasta saga ends here in the book, but there are key snippets in the episode log where Sanji's intelligence in politics and humility before food arise. He's not nearly as informed as Nami or Robin on matters of the world, though he does have a broad knowledge of many things if his quick thinking about the hidden cannon's trajectory is any indication. However, he knows what can and will make a splash. He takes the lead on behalf of the exhausted crew to get Luffy back from Cobra and decline returning with Vivi. And this and that happen though, and they're taken into the royal palace. As an aside, I love how ridiculously he sleeps that he would tumble off the bed backwards. During the banquet, once everyone is awake, Sanji asks a server about the dish he's eating. Sanji is humble before food. He always claims that he's a first-rate or world-class chef, but he never lords this over anyone. He also doesn't feel a strong need to take credit for what he's made. All he desires is to see a smile on his customer's face. The culinary world is vast, so he feels no shame asking for recipes as he does with Hachan and Ivankov. He also looks out for Chopper during the banquet to ensure the latter doesn't choke, and I think that's such a sweet touch.